This is Mrs. Martin, and this is a lesson on finding mass and volume using the density formula. Now, before we go into the new lesson, I'd like to remind you on how to use the previous lesson on just finding density using mass and volume. So I have 3 practice problems here. The first one is the volume of a piece of wood was 45 centimeters cubed. The mass of the wood is 40 grams. What is the density? And bonus, would the wood float or sink in water and why? Pause the recording, take a minute, and solve the problem. Is the problem solved? Good. Here's the answer. Whoopsie, let's change that. Delete. Okay, here's the answer. This is basically everything that you need to know about this problem, including what the mass is, the volume is, the density. The actual answer is right here. The density is 0.9 grams per centimeters cubed. All right? Excellent. Your next practice question is this one. The box of ice cream has a length of 20 centimeters and a width of 10 centimeters and a height of 8 centimeters. The ice cream has a mass of 2,000 grams. What is the density of the dessert? Please pause the camera or pause the video, take a minute, and try to solve the problem. Do you have it solved yet? Excellent. Here is the answer. The volume ends up being 1,600. The mass ends up being 2,000. So you end up with an answer of about 1 once it's rounded. It ends up being a little bit more than that, but since all of our numbers here were whole numbers, your answer is also in the whole number category. Now, this is not official rounding procedure. This is just kind of the shortcut that I've given you in class. So that is the second one. Take a second and look at our third problem. Henry dropped an 8-gram rock into a graduated cylinder, raising the water level 82 milliliters. If the starting volume is 78, what was the density of the rock? Pause the video, solve the problem. Have you solved the problem? Excellent. Here's the answer. The correct answer here is that the density is 2 grams per centimeters cubed. All right, and that is once you've taken the final volume minus the starting volume to get the actual volume of the rock. So here's all the procedures. You can always hit pause to go over that. So that is density. That is the straightforward density equals mass divided by volume review. But now we've got a new problem. What if you're not looking for density? What if you're looking for mass? Or what if you're looking for volume? Well, you have 3 ways of attacking this problem. You have 3 ways of looking at it. You can do algebra, you can memorize the formula, or you can use a mnemonic device. Now, let's start with algebra. When you start with algebra, you start with what you know. You know that density equals mass divided by volume. We've been practicing that for a while. You should know that at this point. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find a way to get mass by itself. And to do that, we multiply both sides of the equation by V. So we multiply both sides by volume. When you do this, the volumes cancel each other out. All right? So if you go to, all right, this volume, and this volume here, they both cancel each other out. So when you do that, you end up with volume times density equals mass. And that's really easy to flip around to have mass equals volume times density. Now you could do the math and refigure it each time, or you could just memorize that. I have no problem with you taking the shortcut and simply just memorizing this formula. If you memorize the formula, then you don't necessarily have to do the math each time. All right? You could also solve for volume. If you're using algebra, you could solve for volume. Now, you already know that density equals mass divided by volume. And again, you start the same way. When you start the same way, you're going to go ahead and you're going to shift the volume over to the other side. And so these two volumes are going to cancel each other out. And that gets you your solution for mass. Volume times density equals mass. But you need to get volume by itself. This means you need to divide both sides by density. When you do that, you divide both sides by density, your densities on this side, they cancel out. And when they cancel out like that, you end up with volume equals mass divided by density. Then you can solve your problem. Now, again, you could do the math, or you could just memorize this formula. If you memorize that formula, then you're able to just go ahead and say, oh, I'm looking for volume. Oh, that's mass divided by density. Let's say you're not a master memorizer, and you really just need a memory trick. You're more a visual thinker, and you'd rather than do math or memorize, you'd rather see it. So a memory trick would be this. You would take this picture right here. This is a triangle. You've got mass on the top, density and volume on the bottom, and you've got it separated like this. What you do is you take whatever it is that you're trying to find and you cover it up. In this case, you're trying to find density. Now, in math, when you have one thing over another thing, it's typically division. If I have mass divided by volume, that's the same as mass divided by volume. So here you've got mass over volume, so if you're looking for density, that's divided by. And you know that density equals mass divided by volume, so you know you're on the right track. What if you're trying to find volume? Well, then you cover that up, and since mass is still on top, it's still mass divided by, but in this case, it's density. If you're trying to find mass, you cover up mass. Density and volume are on the same level. It's not one over the other, so then you multiply the two together. Basically, the shortcut is this. If you have a problem where mass is given, all right? When you've got a math problem, the things that they give you at the beginning, those are givens. If you have a math problem and mass is a given, then it is a division problem and mass goes in the calculator first. If you remember this little detail, if mass is given, it's division, and it goes in the calculator first, that can get you where you need to go. Now, what you need to do next is then you need to practice this skill. So I'm going to shift it to here. And I want you to pause the video and practice each of these. All right? When you're done, you can go find the answers on my webpage. All right? So pause here. When you're done with these, then you can go on. There's one more. Oops. And pause here. And that's it. Have a good day.